as well as the affirmative team. Both teams can agree that in today's debate round, the goal of United States interests must remain at the forefront. Because when acting in public policy, and specifically foreign policy, the United States must ensure that we are keeping our own interests at the top of our minds. And today, I'm going to be showing you how the affirmative team's plan fails to do that. Fails to actually benefit our United States interests, and in fact serves counter to them in Sudan. And I'll be doing this looking at, again, at the stock issues that have significance, solvency, and then finally ending off with a disadvantage, responding to some of the points that the second affirmative constructive brought up, and at the end of the day showing how the affirmative team does not uphold their goal. First of all, they said that in response to our significance point, that they are still harboring terror and still related to terrorists. They said that they read a report from the State Department saying that they weren't. However, it was qualified. And as my partner read, it said within their own boundaries. However, the evidence we read gave examples of times that they had been related to terror activity outside of their country, that they had helped ISIS and Al-Qaeda by turning a blind eye to them outside of their nation. That evidence by the affirmative team was qualified, whereas our evidence had examples of them acting outside of their own borders. So the point that they still have some ways to go in improving their efforts still stands. Now, the contradiction that was brought up by the affirmative team is not really a contradiction, because we use this fact that they still are related to terrorists to say that it's not time to actually normalize relations. Not that we cannot remove them from the list if we don't want to, because obviously if the United States wanted to, we could remove them from the list. However, when you take a multivariate analysis of all of our United States interests, we can determine that it's not in the United States' interest to remove them right now. And that is what we were showing in our disadvantages. But before I get to there, I'd like to mainly focus a lot on the solvency of the affirmative team's policy, because their plan is nothing if it doesn't solve for their harms. What are their harms, however? That Russian control compromises U.S. interests. And in the second affirmative constructive, they read many cards about it, convincing points, talking about how Russian influence is a bad thing. This aside, however, they have not refuted the point that Russia is already having major influence in Sudan. And in fact, when the United States mitigated some of the sanctions, they ran straight to Russia. Russia is already engaging with Sudan in many different relations. The affirmative team has offered you no evidence that they will be able to mitigate Russian influence, that they will somehow be able to push them out and instead replace that with United States influence. They have just offered you speculation at this point, that under the affirmative team's policy, they will actually be able to counter Russia. The fact of the matter is that Russia is there in the negative team's world and the affirmative team's world. And this is an unfortunate fact. The United States, the Russian government rather, has been able to successfully infiltrate and influence Sudan. However, the affirmative team's plan does not actually solve for that Russian influence. So they cannot claim their advantage of they cannot claim that they solve their harms, and they fail the affirmative team's burden. But what they furthermore do is they threaten our United States interests. Not only is their policy a bad idea because it doesn't benefit our interests, they actually serve to counter them. As my partner read, there are many different reasons why the United States would want to take a multivariate analysis of all of our interests, rather than just this one that they can't even claim to solve. We need to look at the levers that the United States has put on. When we first started sanctioning Sudan on the state-sponsored terrorism list, it caused them to improve their practices. Now, while they are still not perfect, while they still have room to improve, and they still would require United States sanctions, they have improved. But it is not time for normalization. It is not time for normalization. My partner read many cards of evidence, citing the fact that Sudan is improving to a point. And that serves to stand with our other point, that they are not there yet. They still have ties with terrorists. Now, this is not a reason that they have to be removed from the list and normalize our relations. Furthermore, as my partner read evidence, the Sudanese people can still do business with the United States. The United States citizens can invest in the Sudanese economy. However, and that is happening in the current system. It's not something that the affirmative team's plan brings about that is new. So looking at the stock issues and whether or not their plan actually upholds United States interests, we can see that there's not a significant problem. And that even if there was, their plan would not do anything to solve that. They must prove to you with evidence that their plan will be able, of removing Sudan from the state-sponsored terrorism list, will effectively be able to counter this Russian influence. And until they can do anything of that sort, they do not deserve their ballot. Furthermore, they serve to counter United States interests. And that is why I ask that you stick with the status quo. Stick with the multivariate analysis that is determining whether or not Sudan is actually ready to come off the and stick with the status quo. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.